What if I told you that the difference between the life you have and the life you want is not 1,000 dramatic changes, but one tiny decision made consistently that most people dismiss as too small to matter? Stay with me, because what I am about to show you is going to permanently change the way you think about progress, and it is going to make the gap between where you are and where you want to be feel, for the first time, genuinely closable. Not through a heroic leap, through a fraction, through the kind of improvement that is so small on any given day that it barely registers, and so enormous across a year that it looks like a completely different life. 1%. Every single day. That is the entire formula. And I know that sounds too simple to be the answer you have been looking for, but I need you to understand what 1% actually does to a life before you dismiss it. Because the mathematics of it are so staggering that once you run the numbers, you will never look at a small daily improvement the same way again. If you get 1% better every day for a year, you end up 37 times better than when you started. 37 times. Not 37% better, 37 times. And if you get 1% worse every day, if you allow the small daily decline, the minor daily compromise, the barely noticeable daily retreat from the standard, you end up at roughly 3% of where you began. The same daily increment, opposite directions, incomprehensibly different destinations. That is the mindset that changes everything. Not the size of the step, the consistency of the direction. Welcome to Motivation Daily. Now, let me show you exactly what this looks like in real lives.
Think about Dave Brailsford and the British cycling team. In 2003, the British national cycling program had won almost nothing of significance in over a century of Olympic competition. They were not just underperforming, they were so consistently unremarkable that a major bicycle manufacturer had refused to sell them bikes because they did not want to be associated with a team whose losses might damage their brand. Brailsford was brought in as performance director and introduced a philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. The idea was disarmingly simple. If you break down every single element of cycling and improve each one by just 1%, those small gains will aggregate into a remarkable improvement. They improved the obvious things: training, nutrition, technique, but they also improved the things nobody had thought to improve. The massage gel that reduced muscle soreness by a fraction, the type of pillow that improved sleep quality marginally, the way riders washed their hands to reduce the chance of illness. Tiny improvements, invisible individually, compounding collectively into something extraordinary. Within 5 years, the British team won 60% of the gold medals available at the Beijing Olympics. 4 years later, at the London Olympics, they shattered 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. A team that could not sell bikes in 2003 became the most dominant cycling program in the world, not through a single breakthrough, but through the relentless, patient, systematic accumulation of 1%.
Now, think about James Clear, the author whose book Atomic Habits has sold over 15 million copies and fundamentally changed the way the world talks about behavior change. What most people do not know is that James Clear was not always an author or a thought leader or a platform with millions of followers. He was a college baseball player who took a baseball bat to the face during a game and suffered a severe traumatic brain injury that left him unable to attend school for months. He rebuilt slowly, painfully, one small habit at a time. He started writing one article every Monday and Thursday, not because he had a grand publishing strategy, but because consistency was the only tool available to someone rebuilding their cognitive capacity from near zero. That schedule, held for years without exception, built an audience. The audience built a book deal. The book became one of the best-selling books on human behavior ever published, not through a single inspired act, through the patient, cumulative 1% at a time power of showing up on schedule for years when nobody was paying attention. And think about Florence Griffith Joyner, FloJo, the sprinter who still holds the world records in the 100 meters and 200 meters more than 3 decades after she set them. What separated her final season from everything that came before it was not a single training revelation. It was her obsessive commitment to marginal improvement in every component of her performance. The angle of her start, the frequency of her stride, the weight distribution of her running suits, which she designed herself to reduce aerodynamic drag by fractions that instruments could barely measure. She attacked every 1% gain available with the ferocity of someone who understood that at the elite level, the difference between a world record and second place is measured in hundredths of a second. In a race that lasts under 11 seconds, a fraction is everything. She aggregated enough fractions to set records that have outlasted an entire generation of sprinters. 1%, multiplied across every element, compounded over a dedicated season of obsessive marginal improvement. That is what immortality in sport looks like from the inside. So here is the question that this mindset forces you to ask, the one that makes it so powerful and so uncomfortable at the same time. Where are you currently getting 1% worse every day without noticing? Where is the small daily compromise happening? The slightly later bedtime, the slightly less focused work session, the slightly reduced standard that nobody, including you, is measuring, but that is quietly compounding in the wrong direction. And where is there a 1% improvement available to you right now, today, in this hour, that you have been overlooking because it seemed too small to make a difference? It is not too small. Nothing that compounds is too small. The smallest consistent improvement is more powerful than the largest inconsistent one. And the smallest consistent decline is more destructive than any single obvious failure.
1% better. Every single day. Not dramatic, not heroic, not the kind of thing anyone will applaud today. But give it a year. Just 1 year. And watch what it does to your life. Share this with someone who is waiting for a big breakthrough instead of making a small daily improvement. Subscribe to Motivation Daily. We compound every day. Drop a comment and tell me, what is the 1% improvement you are committing to starting right now? Name it. Small is not the enemy of great. Small consistently is great. Let's go.